Hello, my dear friends. If today's joke brings a smile to your lovely face, why not hit that subscribe button? It's a small click that guarantees more laughs in your day. Jimmy goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, wherever I touch, it hurts." The doctor asks, "What do you mean?" Jimmy says, "When I touch my shoulder, it really hurts. When I touch my knee, it hurts. When I touch my forehead, it really, really hurts." Jimmy was diagnosed with a broken index finger later that day. My dad sent me this on Facebook, which means it's almost guaranteed to be a repost. I touched it up a bit, but here you go. The worst day ever. There I was, sitting at the bar, staring at my drink, when a large troublemaking biker steps up next to me, grabs my drink and gulps it down in one swig. "Well, what you gonna do about it?" he says menacingly. I burst into tears. "This is the worst day of my life," I say. "I'm a complete failure." I was late for a meeting and my boss fired me. When I went to the parking lot, I found that my car had been stolen and I don't have any insurance. I left my wallet in the cab I took to get home. At home, I found my wife with another man. Then my dog bit me. So I came to this bar to work up the courage to end it all. I bought a drink and dropped a suicide capsule in it. Then, after all that, as I sat down here watching the poison dissolve, you came in here and drank the whole damn thing. Three rough-looking bikers stomp into a truck stop where an old-timer is having breakfast. One of the bikers extinguishes his cigarette in the old guy's pancakes. The second biker spits a wad of chewing tobacco into his coffee. The third biker dumps the whole plate onto the floor. Without a word of protest, the old guy pays his bill and leaves. "Not much of a man, was he?" says one of the bikers. "Not much of a driver either," says the waitress. "He just backed his truck over 3 motorcycles." A dog wanted a loan for a new doghouse. He picked up a valuable knick-knack that he had sitting around and headed to the bank. Once there, he said that he wanted a loan and was using the knick-knack as collateral. The teller, named Patty Whack, looked at the knick-knack and said that it wasn't valuable enough for the amount he wanted loaned to him. The dog got angry and, in his best expression of a Karen, asked to see a manager. The manager came out. He looked at the knick-knack, then at Patty and told her, "It's a knick-knack, Patty Whack. Give the dog a loan." A couple was shopping at the mall on Christmas Eve and the mall was packed. As the wife walked through the mall, she was surprised to look up and see that her husband was nowhere around. She was quite upset because they had a lot to do. Because she was so worried, she called him on her mobile phone to ask him where he was. In a calm voice, the husband said, "Honey, you remember the jewelry store we went into about 5 years ago where you fell in love with that diamond necklace that we could not afford? And I told you that I would get it for you one day?" The wife choked up, started to cry and said, "Yes, I remember that jewelry store." He said, "Well, I'm in the bar right next to it." An Amish family goes to a mall for the first time. And of course, they are overwhelmed. The man stands in front of an elevator, puzzled what this contraption may be. He watches a very heavy-set woman enter it, the doors close and the elevator goes up, and as it returns, a young, beautiful woman emerges. "What is that, Pa?" little Joshua wants to know. "Never mind, son, but go get your mum here, quick." An 80-year-old man went to the doctor for a checkup, and the doctor was amazed at what good shape the guy was in. The doctor asked, "To what do you attribute your good health?" The old-timer said, "I'm a golfer, and that's why I'm in such good shape. I'm up well before daylight and out golfing up and down the fairways." The doctor said, "Well, I'm sure that helps, but there's got to be more to it." "How old was your father when he died?" The old-timer said. "Who said my father's dead?" The doctor said, "You mean you're 80 years old and your father is still alive? How old is he?" The old-timer said, "He's 100 years old and, in fact, he golfed with me this morning. That's why he's still alive. He's a golfer." The doctor said, "Well, that's great, but I'm sure there's more to it. How about your grandfather? How old was he when he died?" The old-timer said, "Who said my grandpa's dead?" The doctor said, "You mean you're 80 years old and your grandfather's still living? How old is he?" The old-timer said, "He's 118 years old." The doctor was getting frustrated at this point and said, "I guess he went golfing with you this morning too." The old-timer said, "No, Grandpa couldn't go this morning because he got married." The doctor said in amazement, "Got married? Why would a 118-year-old guy want to get married?" The old-timer shot back, "Who said he wanted to?" Little John is walking at the mall with his grandma. He sees a coin of €1. He asks his grandma, "Can I pick that up?" His grandma answers, "No, no, everything that's on the ground is dirty." They walk further and he sees a note for €5. He asks his grandma, "Can I pick that up?" His grandma answers, "No, no, everything that's on the ground is dirty." They walk further and he sees a note of €100. Excitedly, he asks his grandma, "Can I pick that up?" His grandma answers, "No, no, no. Everything that's on the ground is dirty." They walk further and unfortunately, Grandma slips over a banana peel and falls. She asks Little John, "Can you pick me up?" And Little John answers, "No, no, everything that's on the ground is dirty." A couple in their 90s are both having problems remembering things. They decide to go to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor tells them that they're physically okay, but they might want to start writing things down to help them remember. Later that night, while watching TV, the old man gets up from his chair. His wife asks, "Where are you going?" "To the kitchen," he replies. "Will you get me a bowl of ice cream?" "Sure." "Don't you think you should write it down so you can remember it?" she asks. "No, I can remember it." "Well, I'd like some strawberries on top too. You'd better write it down, because you know you'll forget it," he says. "I can remember that. You want a bowl of ice cream with strawberries." "I'd also like whipped cream." "I'm certain you'll forget that, so you'd better write it down," she retorts. Irritated, he says, "I don't need to write it down. I can remember it. Leave me alone. Ice cream with strawberries and whipped cream. I got it, for goodness sake." Then he grumbles into the kitchen. After about 20 minutes, the old man returns from the kitchen and hands his wife a plate of bacon and eggs. She stares at the plate for a moment and says, "Where's my toast?" Harry and his wife are having hard financial times, so they decide that she'll become a hooker. She's not quite sure what to do, so Harry says, "Stand in front of that bar and pick up a guy. Tell him that you charge $100. If you have a question, I'll be parked around the corner." She's standing there for 5 minutes when a guy pulls up and asks, "How much?" She says, $100. He says, "All I got is 30. She says, "Hold on," and runs back to Harry and asks, "What can he get for 30? "A hand job," Harry replies. She runs back and tells the guy all he gets for $30 is a hand job. He agrees. She gets in the car. He unzips his pants, and out pops this huge... She stares at it for a minute and then says, "I'll be right back." She runs back to Harry and asks, "Can you loan this guy $70? A mother-in-law arrives home from the mall to find her son-in-law boiling angry and hurriedly packing his suitcase. "What happened?" she asks anxiously. "What happened? I'll tell you what happened. I sent an email to my wife telling her I was coming home today from my business trip. I get home and guess what I found? Yes, your daughter, my wife, is with a guy in our marital bed. This is unforgivable. The end of our marriage. I'm done. I'm leaving forever." "Calm down, my son," says his mother-in-law. "There is something very odd going on here. My daughter would never do such a thing. There must be a simple explanation. I'll go speak to her immediately and find out what happened." Moments later, the mother-in-law comes back with a big smile. "I told you there must be a simple explanation. She didn't get the email." One time, 3 boys went to the mall. Their names were Trouble, Shut Up, and Be Quiet. While at the mall, Trouble got lost. The other boys went up to a police officer and told him their brother was lost. The officer asked, "What is your name?" The boys responded, "Shut up and be quiet." The officer said, "Seriously, what are your names?" The boys said again, "Shut up and be quiet." The officer asked, "Are you looking for trouble?" "Yes," both boys replied. Two old-timers in a retirement home are reminiscing of the good old days when they come to realise that they haven't been with women for a long time. So they decide to go and visit the nearest brothel. When they arrive, they ask the pimp to find them the best hookers they've got. The pimp takes one look at them and says that he knows exactly what they need. On their way out, one asks the other, "How was it?" To which he replies that something was amiss. The hooker was a bit stiff and didn't move much. "At least yours wasn't a witch," says the first. "I got a bit rough with my one. She farted and flew out of the window." He needs money to lay in his annual crop of peanuts. Times have been hard and he's hopeful the bank will lend him the funds to buy seed, so hopefully he can get a good crop. The banker apologises and explains that although many farmers have asked, peanuts crops have been so poor that the bank is simply unwilling to loan to anyone planning to plant peanuts. However, the banker says the bank is willing to loan other crops. The banker recommends sunflowers. The farmer is devastated, but eventually agrees to give sunflowers a try. Anything to get the loan and get some seed in the ground, he says. At harvest time, another farmer asks how the sunflowers worked out. The farmer admits that they've done very well, so well that he expects to be able to pay back the bank, put money away for the winter, and even, possibly, have money left over for next year's peanuts. I was doing tourist stuff in New Orleans one summer and had gone down to the waterfront. I was sitting on a bench looking out at the water when a guy came up to me and offered me a bet. He said, "I bet you $5 I can tell you where you got your shoes." I was from several states away, so I figured there was no way this guy could guess which shoe store at the local mall I had purchased my sneakers at. So I agreed to the bet. The guy put out his hand for us to shake on it and assured me he would pay if he was wrong, and he asked me to do the same. I did. He grinned and said, "Now, I'm going to tell you where you got your shoes. You got your shoes on your feet." I laughed and paid the $5. An elderly man had owned his large farm in Louisiana for many years. Right at the back of the farm, there was a large pond that was ideal for swimming. The old farmer had fixed it up really nicely, with picnic tables, horseshoe courts, and some apple and peach trees. One evening, the farmer decides to go down to the pond to look it over, as he hadn't been down there for a while. Before setting off, he grabs a 5-gallon bucket and decides he'll bring back some fruit. As he nears the pond, he can hear voices shouting and laughing with glee. Clearly, someone is having a good time. As the farmer gets closer, he can see a bunch of young women who are clearly skinny dipping in his pond. He makes the women aware of his presence, and immediately they all swim over to the far end. One of the women then shouts, "We're not coming out until you leave, mister." The farmer replies, "Ladies, I didn't come down here to watch you swim naked or make you get out of the pond. You carry on." The wily old-timer then holds up his bucket and says, "I just came down here to feed the alligators." A man picks up and answers a phone in a mall. A woman is on the other end. "Hello, darling," she says. "I recently saw a necklace in a catalogue and I want it, so do you mind if I use your credit card?" "How expensive is it?" the man says. "Just $1,200. "That cheap? Hell, get 4 of them for you so you can wear a different one each season." "You're so generous, honey. Oh, I also want a ring. How expensive?" Only $5,000. "Get 2, one for each hand." "Thank you. Oh, and I also want a new car. It's $4,000. "Sure, why not?" "I love you so much, dear. I gotta go. Bye." After that, the man looks around the mall and loudly asks, "Did anyone drop a phone?" One day during a math class, the teacher decided to test the students with a question that seemed simple enough. She looked around the room, her eyes finally landing on a group of girls sitting together in the middle row. With a confident smile, she asked, "Can anyone tell me what happens if you put 2 into 1? The girls exchanged puzzled glances, trying to figure out what the teacher meant. The classroom was silent, the kind of silence that only happens when everyone is either completely confused or completely lost. The teacher waited patiently, hoping someone would step up with the right answer. After a moment, one girl slowly raised her hand. The teacher, pleased that someone was willing to try, nodded for her to speak. "Miss," the girl began, her voice filled with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Either you have a lot of courage to even ask that, or, for us, even just one would be too much to handle." Tired of his parents' incessant harangue, a very lazy young man went for fishing to add some fish to their menu. While sitting for fishing, he felt very sleepy and was yawning. An old-timer saw his lackadaisical approach and poked him. "Son, why are you working so hard? Just go to home and take a nap. It won't be hard for you, I guess." The young man replied, "No, no, I have to catch some fish, but it seems very hard to catch one. It would be better if fish-esh came to basket of their own." The old man laughed and said, "It won't be possible for sure, but you can just marry a girl, then make her pregnant. She will give you a child. You can then devolve this duty to that child and enjoy free time." The young man seemed a bit interested. Yawning again, he asked the old man, "It is a good idea. I should have thought about that. Do you know any pregnant girl?" A young man wanted to invite his girlfriend to their farm but was embarrassed by the old-fashioned outdoor toilet. He kept bickering his dad for a modern indoor one, but the old-timer didn't want to give in. Out of sheer desperation, he slips out one night, puts a lot of dynamite behind the toilet, and blows the whole affair into oblivion. The next morning at breakfast, his father asks him if it was he who destroyed the toilet and, at the same time, reminds him of the story of George Washington and the cherry tree. "Yes, Dad," sighed the boy, it was me." "I'm glad you're so honest," said his father. "And as punishment, you have to start digging the pit for a new one immediately." "But, Dad," protests the boy, "when George Washington admitted it was he who cut the tree, his father didn't punish him." "Yes, you're right," said his father. "But George's dad wasn't in the cherry tree when he cut it down." An old man is fishing by the creek. Soon a wagon pulled by horses approaches on the road behind him. "Is the water shallow enough to pass through with my horses and goods, old man?" bellowed the driver. "Sure, mere few feet to the right, a small family made their way across not an hour ago," meekly said the old-timer. Happy to shorten his journey, the driver reins his horses across the stream, not a few steps in when the horses succumb to the watery depth. Barely holding onto the bank, the driver escaped the waters with his life intact, while the horses drowned. "Oi, you old fart! You said I could make my way across here. Didn't you tell me that a small family made it across?" The old man was puzzled. "I don't get it. The family of ducks passed, and their legs were much shorter than the ones in your horses." Two old seniors are sitting on a bench outside a nursing home. They both take sips of their drinks, rocking back and forth slowly. One looks at the other and asks, "How's your weekend been, George?" George looks at him. "It's been amazing. I was taking a walk down the street and I came to a railroad crossing. Lo and behold, a girl was tied up on the tracks, just like in the movies." The other old-timer looked over in shock. "No way, you're kidding." George put his hands up. "I swear it's true. So obviously, I rescued her, obviously. I took her home and we made love under the stars. 17 times I counted." "That must have been the best night of your life," George nodded. "It most definitely was." He paused and took a sip of his drink. "Only problem was I couldn't find her head." A blonde walks into a bank in New York City and asks for the loan officer. She says she's going to Europe on business for 2 weeks and needs to borrow $5,000. The bank officer says the bank will need some kind of security for the loan, so the blonde hands over the keys to a new Rolls-Royce. The car is parked on the street in front of the bank. She has the title, and everything checks out. The bank agrees to accept the car as collateral for the loan. The bank's president and its officers all enjoy a good laugh at the blonde for using a $250,000 roll as collateral against a $5,000 loan. An employee of the bank then drives the rolls into the bank's underground garage and parks it there. 2 weeks later, the blonde returns and repays the $5,000 and the interest, which comes to 15 to 4 pounds. The loan officer says, "Miss, we are very happy to have had your business, and this transaction has worked out very nicely. But we are a little puzzled. We checked you out and found that you are a multimillionaire. What puzzles us is, why would you bother to borrow $5,000? The blonde replies, "Where else in New York City can I park my car for 2 weeks for only $15 and expect it to be there when I return?" It was George the mailman's last day on the job after 35 years of carrying the mail through all kinds of weather to the same neighborhood. When he arrived at the first house on his route, he was greeted by the whole family, who congratulated him and sent him on his way with a tidy gift envelope. At the second house, they presented him with a box of fine cigars. The folks at the third house handed him a selection of terrific fishing lures. At the fourth house, he was met at the door by a strikingly beautiful blonde woman in a revealing negligee. She took him by the hand, gently led him through the door, which she closed behind him, and took him up the stairs to the bedroom, where she blew his mind with the most passionate love he had ever experienced. When he had enough, they went downstairs and she fixed him a giant breakfast. Eggs, potatoes, ham, sausage, blueberry waffles, and fresh squeezed orange juice. When he was truly satisfied, she poured him a cup of steaming coffee. As she was pouring, he noticed a dollar bill sticking out from under the cup's bottom edge. "All this was just too wonderful for words," he said. "But what's the dollar for?" "Well," she said, "last night I told my husband that today would be your last day and that we should do something special for you. I asked him what to give you. He said, 'Screw him. Give him $1. The breakfast was my idea." Two friends met at the neighborhood supermarket. When they got to the checkout, one of the ladies started rummaging through her purse for her wallet. She took out a few things, including a TV remote. "Do you always take the remote with you when you go shopping?" The other woman laughed. "No," the woman answered. "But I asked my husband if he wanted to help me shop, and he said no. I asked him if I could take the car. And he replied that as long as I left him the TV, I could take whatever I wanted and get out of the house. So I turned to the fashion channel and told him he had nothing to worry about." One day, the general manager noticed the young boy and asked the clerk about him. He then told him that the young boy comes every day and deposits exactly $100 each time. So the manager told the clerk to send him the little boy the next time he came to the bank. The next day, the boy comes in and he's sent to meet the manager. The manager, "So tell me, how do you get $100 a day?" The boy, "Well, every day I have a bet with a different guy." The manager, "About what?" The boy, "About the fact that I can kiss my right eye." Then the manager replies, "Haha, no way." The boy, "We can bet if you really want to." The manager was confident and gave his consent to the boy. Few seconds later, the boy takes off his ocular prosthesis and kiss it. The manager felt so stupid that he asked the young boy to give him back his $100. The boy agreed to give it back, but under one condition. The boy, "Let's have another bet. I'm pretty sure that you are wearing red girly panties. I've him wrong. I will give you back your $100 plus another $100 for this bet." The manager is feeling overconfident because he knows that he isn't wearing this kind of panties and said yes. Then the boy said again, "But before you get undressed, we need to have 10 eyewitnesses to make it legit." The manager was okay about it and called all his staff. After taking off his pants, the manager felt happy because he just won $100, but he then noticed that the young boy was so happy about losing his money that he asked him, "How can you be so happy about losing your money?" The boy replied, "Well, I had a bet with your staff about how many minutes I'll need to make you take off your pants, and guess who won? A blonde and brunette decide to rob a bank." "So you remember the plan?" the brunette asks. The blonde smiles and nods. "I'll keep the car ready." "Good luck." The blonde runs in, mask on and pistol in one hand. 5 minutes pass and nothing. The brunette glances at her watch nervously. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20. This is taking way too long. What the hell is she doing in there? The brunette asks herself frantically. 30 minutes later, the blonde runs out with a rope and ties it to the back of the car. She jumps in and the brunette floors it. The rope tightens and a safe bashes right through the bank wall and trails behind the car. A guard with his pants down runs behind and tries to fire but falls in an awkward attempt to run behind with his pants down. The brunette, furious and red-faced, turns to the blonde and says, "I knew you'd screw this up. I told you to tie up the guard and blow the safe." In the 1950s, a group of friends decided to test a blind man to see if he could tell the denomination of bills. They started passing $1 bills to the blind man, and he could tell that they were $1 bills. Then someone gave him a 5, which he knew immediately was a $5 bill. Then they handed him a 10, and he still knew what it was. Then they alternated the 1, 5, and 10, of which he always got it correct. Then a rich man handed the blind man a $20 bill. He knew what it was. They continued alternating the bills, except the 20. After several attempts to fool him, they handed him the same 20 from before. "This is a $20 bill, and I'd bet that it's the same one from before," the blind man says. One of the other men asks, "How do you know that?" "Only one person in this group can afford a $20 bill." A 75-year-old man whose hair is completely white marries a 22-year-old girl and she gets pregnant. 9 months later, he is sitting in the maternity ward talking to the nurse. "Hey, well, how'd I do?" The nurse says, "She had twins." Hey, just goes to show even if there is snow on the roof, there is still fire in the furnace." The nurse says, "Well, you better change the filters. Both babies are black." A Czechoslovakian goes to the zoo and heads to the lion exhibit. He wants a closer look at the lions, and before anyone could stop him, he was as their cage. He's soon attacked and eaten by one of the lions. A witness to this tragic event says to the zookeeper, "I saw the whole thing happen. It was a male lion who ate the Czechoslovakian." The zookeeper opens up one of the male lions, but finds no Czechoslovakian. He then opens up the other male lion. Again, no Czechoslovakian. Finally, they open the female lion. There's the Czechoslovakian. Moral of the story is to never believe someone when they say, "The Czech is in the mail." A little girl says to her mother, "Mummy, when you were away at work, a strange lady came around." "Not now," says Mummy. "Wait until Daddy gets home." So they wait until Daddy gets home, and then Mummy says, "Now, dear, what were you saying about Daddy and the strange lady?" And Daddy starts to say something, but Mummy says, "You keep quiet. I'll be talking to my attorney in the morning. Carry on, dear." "Well," says the little girl, "Daddy told me to stay downstairs while they went upstairs, but I followed them without Daddy seeing me, and I saw them hugging and kissing at the top of the stairs. Then they went into your bedroom and shut the door, but I went up and looked through the keyhole." "Clever girl," purrs Mummy. "What could you see through the keyhole?" "I saw them hugging and kissing some more, and then they started to take each other's clothes off, and they carried on until they had nothing on, and then the lady got on the bed and Daddy got on top of her." "Yes," says Mummy. "And then what happened?" "Then they did what you and Uncle Jack did when Daddy was in Vancouver last year," says the little girl confidently. A judge was interviewing a woman regarding her pending divorce and asked, "What are the grounds for your divorce?" She replied, "About 4 acres and a nice little home in the middle of the property with a stream running by." "No," he said. "I mean, what is the foundation of this case?" "It is made of concrete, brick and mortar," she responded. "I mean," he continued, "what are your relations like?" "I have an aunt and uncle living here in town, and so do my husband's parents." He said, "Do you have a real grudge?" "No," she replied. "We have a 2-car carport and have never really needed one." "Please," he tried again, "is there any infidelity in your marriage?" "Yes, both my son and daughter have stereo sets. We don't necessarily like the music, but the answer to your questions is yes." "Mum, does your husband ever beat you up?" "Yes," she responded. "About twice a week he gets up earlier than I do." Finally, in frustration, the judge asked, "Lady, why do you want a divorce?" "Oh, I don't want a divorce," she replied. "I've never wanted a divorce. My husband does. He said he can't communicate with me." The ringleader hired the best safe cracker for their bank job. In criminal circles, he was known to crack any safe, and the police never caught him. When the day of the heist came, they entered the bank, secured the building, corralled the hostages in the bank manager's office, and the safe cracker proceeded to the locked vault. After a few quick inspections, the safe cracker sat down, pulled off his shoes and socks, and started manipulating the combination dial with his toes. "Why are you wasting time like this?" the ringleader asked. The safe cracker replied, "I'll have it open in a jiffy. This only takes me 5 extra seconds, but it really confuses the guys in the fingerprint lab." If you're still here, it means you enjoyed it. So go ahead and subscribe. You won't lose a thing, but I'll gain a wonderful friend in you.